The peaceful hum of the colony was shattered when the first signal arrived. For years, humanity had enjoyed their isolation on the distant planet. The colony was thriving, the people were growing. And their technology, while not as advanced as the rest of the galaxy, was enough for them to live peacefully. But something was wrong. A disturbance in space, a signal that no one could understand. It came from deep within uncharted space, from a place beyond human reach. The signal was coded, almost like a distress call, but with an underlying threat that no one could ignore. The government and military officials were in denial, unable to comprehend what this could mean. They thought it was just a glitch, something lost in the void of space. But something stirred within the heart of the human people, a sense of dread that spread quickly across the colony. General Hale, the commanding officer of the colony's defense force, stared out from the control room, watching the data streams flow by on his screen. His eyes narrowed in suspicion. His instincts told him this wasn't something to be ignored. Humanity had been alone in this corner of space for centuries. Why now? Why this signal? "Is there any response to the signal?" he asked, his voice calm but filled with tension. "No, sir. No response," Lieutenant Ross answered. He was younger, less experienced, but had a good head on his shoulders. "The signal has been looping for hours now. We've tried everything to break the code, but it's like it's waiting." General Hale's face hardened. He didn't like this feeling, the feeling of being watched. He had led many battles in his life, but this was different. This was an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't understand. "We need to prepare for the worst. Have every ship on alert," Hale ordered. He turned to face the console, his fingers tapping away at the keys, trying to learn something new from the data. But nothing made sense. The signal remained unbroken, a constant reminder that they were not alone. Later that night, as the colony slept under the artificial light of their planet's moon, the skies above the colony grew darker. At first, no one noticed. It wasn't until the sun began to rise and strange ships appeared in the sky that the terror truly began. A fleet of sleek, black ships appeared like shadows, drifting silently into view. They had no markings, no insignia, just smooth, angular forms that didn't belong. The people on the ground stared in horror as these ships hovered above, slowly blocking out the sunlight. Their design was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. There was no warning, no communication, just the oppressive silence of their arrival. General Hale's heart raced. He was a man of action, not words, but in this moment he felt powerless. The ships had no markings to identify who they were or where they had come from. The colony had prepared for many things: rebellions, natural disasters, and even invasions from nearby planets. But nothing like this. "Lieutenant Ross, get me the command center. Now." Hale barked, his voice firm despite the rising panic inside him. The minutes that followed felt like hours. Messages were sent, orders were given, but nothing prepared them for what was about to unfold. The enemy ships were not attacking, but simply observing. Silent, unmoving, they hovered above, watching the humans below like they were nothing more than ants under a magnifying glass. It was as if they knew humanity would cower in fear, would hide behind their walls, their technology. They underestimated the strength of human resolve. The colony had always prided itself on being a peaceful outpost, a place where humans could start fresh without the overbearing rule of galactic politics. But now it seemed that their peace was a lie. The silence from above was deafening. Was this just the beginning? Was this how it would all end? Then came the voice. A distorted sound crackled through the comm systems, followed by a strange metallic voice that boomed across every speaker. "Humanity, you are in violation of the Galactic Code. Surrender or face extinction." The words sent a chill down Hale's spine. There was no name, no face, just this cold, distant voice demanding their submission. The general could feel the weight of this moment. The very air seemed to thicken as the words echoed in his mind. Extinction. It was a word that had haunted every human heart. No one ever believed it could happen. But now, staring at the ships in the sky, Hale wasn't so sure. Are we supposed to just surrender? Lieutenant Ross asked, his voice shaking. General Hale's jaw clenched. He had spent his life defending humanity. And this was beyond anything he had faced before. The aliens, whoever they were, had already made their intentions clear. They wanted humanity to kneel. Not a chance, Hale said, his voice low but filled with unshakable resolve. We never ask for permission, Lieutenant. We take what's ours. A flicker of hope spread through the room. It was a simple statement, but it carried the weight of everything humanity stood for. Hale knew that the survival of humanity wasn't in their hands alone. It would take every person on this colony, every soldier, every worker, every engineer to fight back against this unseen enemy. He turned toward his team, his voice firm. Prepare for battle. We fight for our home. We fight for our future. The first shots had not been fired, but the war had already begun. The aliens had come expecting fear, expecting submission, but they would soon learn that humans never asked for permission. They took what was theirs, and they weren't going down without a fight. The days following the alien ship's arrival were filled with tension, uncertainty, and rapid action. General Hale's message had rallied the colony, and the people responded. They weren't going to surrender. They had faced hardships before, but nothing like this. The unknown was terrifying, but humanity's spirit was unbreakable. In the command center, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Every soldier, engineer, and technician worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming conflict. The colony's defense systems were old, their technology nowhere near as advanced as the alien ships, but humans were known for their resilience and resourcefulness. They adapted. They fought. General Hale stood at the heart of the operations room, eyes scanning the latest data feed. The alien ships remained silent, hovering above them, their dark presence a constant reminder of the threat looming over the colony. The communication from the aliens had left no room for doubt. Their intentions were clear. They'd wanted the humans to submit, to kneel before their power. But the general refused to yield. Keep the shields up. Maintain defensive posture, Hale barked, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. We're not giving them an inch. Lieutenant Ross, now a trusted member of Hale's inner circle, stood by his side, coordinating with the various divisions. General, we're ready. The outer defenses are fully operational, but we don't know what we're up against. Those ships, they got technology we've never seen before. Hale nodded grimly. We don't need to match their technology. We just need to be better. Our strength lies in our will to fight. We'll figure out their weaknesses. Trust me, Lieutenant. They didn't come here expecting us to fight back. Meanwhile, down on the surface, the rest of the colony prepared for the worst. People were scared, but they were also determined. They had watched as the alien ships loomed above, casting shadows over their world. The once peaceful atmosphere had turned to one of defiance. Everyone knew that this was a fight for their survival. As the sun set on the colony, the air was thick with the sound of preparation. Armored vehicles were being loaded with supplies. Soldiers suited up, their faces a mixture of fear and resolve. For many, this was the first battle they had ever fought. But the training they had received, the lessons learned from Earth's long history of wars, would serve them now. The colony had never been a military outpost, but they had a single advantage that no invader could ever prepare for: human ingenuity. The engineers worked tirelessly to modify old weapons, reprogram defense systems, and design new traps for the aliens. It was a race against time, and the clock was ticking. Hale walked through the corridors of the colony, his boots echoing in the silence. Everywhere he looked, people were preparing for battle. The air was heavy with the weight of their shared responsibility. Every decision mattered now. The people looked to him for guidance, for leadership. He couldn't afford to let them down. In a quiet corner of the colony, Sarah, a young technician, sat at her workstation, her fingers flying over the controls. She had been working on a new kind of energy pulse, something that could disrupt the alien ship's shields. It was a long shot, but it was humanity's only shot. Her heart raced as she recalibrated the energy signature, hoping that it would work. Her assistant, Tom, approached her with a worried look. "Sarah, do you really think this will work? The aliens' technology is light years ahead of ours. We've never seen anything like those ships." Sarah paused for a moment, her eyes focused on the screen in front of her. She didn't have the answers, but she knew one thing. We don't have a choice. If we don't try, we lose. And I'm not ready to give up on us yet. Tom nodded, a quiet determination settling over him. "I'm with you. Let's do this." At the same time, General Hale was finalizing the plans for their first counterattack. The strategy was risky, but it was the only option. They would hit the aliens where it hurt, taking out their communication relays, their sensors, anything that would give them an edge. It was a small hope, but it was all they had. "Deploy the ground forces," Hale ordered. "We strike at dawn." The next morning, the colony was a flurry of activity. Soldiers moved into position, the first wave of fighters getting ready to launch their assault. The tension was palpable, and the soldiers could feel the weight of the mission bearing down on them. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for their home, for their families, for their future. As the first wave of fighters lifted off from the surface, the alien ships seemed to respond. Their shields shimmered in the light, and the colony's scanners detected movement. The enemy was preparing for battle. General Hale stood at the command center, watching the screens as the fighter jets flew toward the alien ships. His heart raced. This was the moment of truth. This was the moment that would determine if humanity could survive this invasion. "All units, stay sharp. No one goes down without a fight," Hale ordered, his voice steady. He knew this wouldn't be easy, but humanity had faced impossible odds before. They could do it again. The first shots rang out. The alien ships retaliated, their weapons firing with precision, but the human fighters were faster, more unpredictable. The battle had begun, and the fate of the colony hung in the balance. Humanity wasn't going to ask for permission. They were going to take what was theirs, and no alien force, no matter how powerful, was going to stop them. The morning air on the colony's surface was thick with tension as the first wave of human fighters ascended into the sky, engines roaring, their sleek forms cutting through the haze. The battle had begun, and every heartbeat felt like the ticking of a clock. General Hale stood firm at the command center, eyes locked on the large central screen where the battle was unfolding. The alien ships, larger and far more advanced, loomed ominously in the sky, their dark, metallic surfaces reflecting the faint light of the sun. Their shields shimmered, but there was no sign of fear in them. The first human fighter jets reached the outer perimeter of the alien formation. For a moment, everything seemed still, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Then the first shot was fired. It wasn't much. A single blast from one of the human fighters. But it was enough. The aliens fired back instantly, their weapons powerful and precise. The energy blast streaked through the air, scorching the atmosphere. One of the human jets was hit, spinning out of control and crashing into the colony below. The fighters and the alien ships engaged in a brutal, chaotic dance. The humans, however, were nimble and unpredictable, using their superior agility to outmaneuver their attackers. "Stay focused." Hale's voice echoed in the command center. "Do not engage unless necessary. Wait for the signal to strike." Despite the chaos, the human fighters maintained their discipline. They couldn't match the firepower of the aliens, but they could outthink them. The humans had something the aliens didn't: adaptability. And now, it was time to use it. On the surface, the resistance teams worked in tandem with the Air Force, deploying ground forces to create diversions. Soldiers in armored exosuits moved with precision, setting up traps around the colony to confuse and delay the alien forces. Explosions rang out in the distance as they detonated hidden charges, triggering small but effective responses from the alien ships. Sarah, the young technician, stood at her station in the underground tech center. Her fingers flew over the controls, monitoring the pulse weapon she had been working on. The energy pulse was her idea, the one thing that could give humanity the edge. It was a long shot, but it had to work. "Tom, how's it looking?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with anticipation. Tom, her assistant, watched the energy readings carefully. "It's powering up, but we still need a few more minutes to be ready. The alien ships are using some kind of shield that we've never seen before. This pulse could work, but only if we hit them in the right spot." Sarah nodded, biting her lip. There was no time left to wait. She turned to Tom, her face set in determination. "Prepare the pulse. We've got to strike now. We can't let them keep gaining ground. The fighters need support. This is our best shot." Tom hesitated for a moment, but then he too realized that the timing couldn't be better. The pulse weapon, once activated, would send a surge of energy aimed directly at the alien ship shields, weakening their defenses and giving the human fighters a fighting chance. It was humanity's only real hope to push the invaders back. The pulse weapon activated. A low hum filled the room, and Sarah's screen lit up with a flashing signal. The pulse was ready. She didn't hesitate. She pressed the final button, sending the pulse into the sky. Back in the command center, General Hale watched as the pulse shot up from the surface and streaked toward the alien fleet. The air felt charged with energy, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the entire world held its breath. Would it work? Would humanity's last-ditch effort be enough? The alien ships didn't respond at first. Then there was a flash, a brilliant explosion of light that spread across the alien fleet. The shields of the lead ship flickered. It was a crack in their armor, a sign of weakness. For the first time, the alien ships seemed vulnerable. "Yes," Hale shouted, his voice filled with triumph. "All units, attack now. This is our chance." The human fighters, now emboldened by the sudden shift in power, launched a coordinated strike against the alien ships. The pulse had worked. The alien shields were weakened, and the humans hit them with everything they had: missiles, laser blasts, and energy weapons. The tide was turning. The alien ships retaliated with ferocity, but now they were on the defensive. The humans fought with everything they had, every ounce of their strength, every shred of their courage. The air was alive with the sounds of battle. Explosions rocked the sky, and debris rained down on the colony. But the humans pushed forward, never yielding. On the ground, the resistance teams fought alongside their fellow soldiers. They planted explosives to disable the alien transporters and took out any remaining alien soldiers attempting to infiltrate the colony. The humans were doing the impossible. They were pushing back the invaders. In the command center, Hale watched as the battle unfolded. His heart raced with every move. This was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, he felt hope. The humans had proven something today. They weren't going down without a fight, and they weren't asking for permission. "We have them on the ropes," Hale shouted. "Don't let up. We're taking this fight to them." The fight was just beginning, but the humans had taken the first step toward victory. The aliens had underestimated them, and now they would pay the price. The battle for survival had turned into a battle for domination, and humanity would stop at nothing to win. The battle raged on, and the colony was now a fractured war zone. The sky above, once a peaceful blue, was choked with plumes of smoke, the flashes of laser beams cutting through the haze. In the midst of the chaos, humanity fought with a ferocity that surprised the alien invaders. Despite their superior technology and numbers, the aliens had never anticipated the resilience of the humans. In the command center, General Hale watched the massive screen as the situation unfolded before him. The alien fleet, once imposing and seemingly invincible, was now struggling. The pulse weapon had done its job. The shield of the lead ship was severely damaged, and several of the smaller alien ships had been destroyed in the surprise attack. "We're hitting them harder than they expected," Hale muttered, his voice filled with determination. "This is our moment. We've got to keep the pressure on." Outside, the human fighters moved in for another wave. Their mission was simple: cripple the alien fleet before they could regroup. The pulse weapon had given them the opening they needed, but the aliens were quick to adapt. The shields on their ships flickered back to life as they tried to repair the damage. However, the humans were relentless. A small group of fighters, led by Captain Emery, targeted one of the alien cruisers, their guns blazing as they closed in. They darted through the air, using the cover of smoke and debris to hide their approach. The aliens, scrambling to respond, couldn't anticipate the human tactics. "This is it," Captain Emery said over the comms, his voice calm but focused. "We've got to strike the heart of their fleet, take out their flagship, and the rest will crumble." The plan was risky, but it was humanity's best chance at turning the tide. They couldn't afford to hold back now. With a series of well-timed maneuvers, Emery's squadron slipped through the alien defenses and launched a concentrated attack on the flagship. Meanwhile, on the ground, Sarah was working feverishly to coordinate the next phase of the assault. The pulse weapon had bought them time, but it wasn't enough to win the war. She had another plan, a final weapon that could cripple the aliens once and for all. But she needed more data. She needed to find a weakness in their systems, something they could exploit. "I've got it," Sarah shouted as she uncovered a crucial detail. "Their command center. It's the weak point. We disable that, and their whole operation will fall apart." Tom, her assistant, looked at the data she had gathered. "Are you sure?" "One shot at it, and it'll all depend on timing." Sarah nodded, determination flooding her veins. "We've got no choice. We've already pushed them this far. We can't let up now." The ground team, led by Sergeant Davis, moved swiftly through the colony's lower levels, using the underground tunnels to approach the alien command center. The air was thick with dust and tension as they crept closer to their target. The aliens had no idea the humans were on their way. Back in space, Captain Emery's squadron was closing in on the alien flagship. Their weapons were almost depleted, and the risk of retaliation was growing with every second. Still, they pressed on, targeting the flagship's weak points as best they could. A blast from the alien fleet rocked the formation, sending several human fighters spiraling out of control. One by one, the pilots fought to regain control of their crafts. But the battle was far from over. Despite the overwhelming odds, they didn't retreat. They pushed forward, determined to destroy the heart of the alien fleet. On the ground, Sergeant Davis's team had reached the alien command center. The building was heavily guarded, but the resistance fighters were undeterred. They fought their way through the aliens, every movement precise and deliberate. The explosives had been set, and soon, the alien command center would be nothing but rubble. Sarah, watching from the underground tech center, held her breath. The final piece of the plan was in motion. The countdown to activate the bomb was ticking away. Every second felt like an eternity. "Now," she whispered, her voice barely audible. With a resounding explosion, the alien command center was obliterated. The shockwave could be felt even on the surface of the colony. The aliens, unprepared for such an attack, were thrown into disarray. Their command structure had been shattered, and without it, their coordination faltered. Their ships hesitated, and for the first time, the aliens were on the back foot. In the skies above, the human fighters pushed their advantage. With the alien fleet in chaos, they launched a final, all-out attack. It was a desperate move, but it was humanity's best chance to strike the killing blow. Captain Emery led the charge, taking down alien ships one after another with deadly precision. As the final alien ship exploded in a burst of light, General Hale allowed himself a moment to breathe. The tide had turned. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had broken the alien siege. But Hale knew this wasn't over. The aliens would regroup. They would retaliate. But for now, humanity had proven their worth. They had fought back against an overwhelming enemy, and they had won. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would learn not to make that mistake again. "We've won the battle," Hale said, his voice steady. "But the war is far from over." The victory over the alien forces was a bittersweet one. While the humans had managed to break the siege and strike a crippling blow to the invaders, the cost was steep. The colony lay in ruins, and the survivors were exhausted, physically and mentally drained. But there was no time to rest. The battle for their home was far from over. General Hale stood in the war room, his face grim as he looked at the status reports. The alien forces were retreating, but this was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen humanity's strength, but they had also seen how vulnerable they were. The aliens would not give up so easily. They would regroup, they would return, and when they did, they would come back with a vengeance. "Everyone is pushing themselves to the limit, General," said Colonel Laura, Hale's second-in-command. "But we can't afford any mistakes. Not now." Hale nodded. The next phase of the fight would be even more difficult. The alien forces, now without their command center, were disorganized, but they were not defeated. If anything, their desire for revenge would only make them more dangerous. "Prepare for the counterattack," Hale ordered, his voice steely. "We may have pushed them back, but we must strike before they can regroup. We can't afford to give them any chance to regain their strength." Meanwhile, Captain Emery and his squadron had already begun to regroup and prepare for the next assault. The fighters were battered, some in critical condition, but the crew was ready. Emery knew that the next wave would require everything they had. There would be no second chances. "We've shown them what humans are made of," Emery said to his squadron as they gathered for their briefing. "But this time, we're going to end it. We're going to finish this war and show them they can never take us again." As the pilots prepared for battle, the ground forces were equally determined. Sergeant Davis and his team were already back on the front lines, securing the perimeter and fortifying the colony's defenses. The alien forces were still a threat, but the humans now had the advantage. They had the will to fight back, and that alone gave them a powerful edge. Sarah, the colony's chief engineer, worked tirelessly in the underground tech center. Her hands flew over the control panels as she worked to finalize the new weapon systems that could turn the tide in their favor. The pulse weapon had been a success, but they needed more, something that could neutralize the aliens' remaining advantage. Almost there, she muttered to herself, her mind focused on the task at hand. "Just a little more. We can end this now." The final piece of the puzzle was a prototype energy cannon, designed to destroy alien ships in one direct hit. It was still experimental, but time was of the essence. The cannon was humanity's last chance to neutralize the alien fleet before they could regroup. Back in the war room, General Hale received word that the alien fleet was regrouping, moving to the edge of the system. This was their opportunity. If they didn't act now, the aliens would return with even more firepower. "It's now or never," Hale said to Colonel Laura. "We strike first. We hit them with everything we've got." The orders were given, and the fleet launched for the final assault. The ships, battered and worn from the previous battles, were ready. This would be their last stand. They knew that if they failed, the aliens would return in greater numbers, and the colony would fall. As the human fleet approached the alien regrouping area, Emery's squadron led the charge, weaving through the debris fields at breakneck speeds. The alien ships were preparing to jump, but the humans were faster. A full-on dogfight broke out as both sides engaged in a fierce battle. Meanwhile, on the ground, Sergeant Davis's forces made a final push to secure key positions and defend against any remaining alien infiltrators. The colony's last line of defense was in place. The humans had no choice but to fight with everything they had left. Then, Sarah's energy cannon was ready. With a deep breath, She activated the weapon, targeting the lead alien ship. The weapon hummed to life, its power building as the alien ship moved closer into range. Firing in 3, 2, 1, Sarah yelled as she pressed the button. The cannon discharged with an earth-shattering roar. A brilliant beam of energy shot out, cutting through the black void of space. The alien ship, unable to evade the attack, exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "Direct hit," Sarah exclaimed, a smile of relief on her face. "We got it." The remaining alien ships were stunned. The weapon they had feared was finally in the hands of their enemies. The shock of losing their flagship sent the rest of the alien forces into disarray. Captain Emery and his squadron took full advantage of the chaos. They swooped in, launching a coordinated attack that took out one ship after another. The aliens, disoriented and panicked, could not mount an effective defense. "Keep pushing forward," Emery commanded. "We're not stopping until they're all gone." Back on the ground, Davis's forces held their ground, their defenses holding strong as the remaining aliens were pushed back. The colony had held out for so long, and now it was finally paying off. With a final devastating strike from the energy cannon, the last of the alien ships was destroyed. Silence fell across the battlefield. The human fleet had won. General Hale stood solemnly as he watched the destruction of the last alien vessel on his screen. The war was over. The humans had fought back and won. They had not only protected their home, but had sent a message to the galaxy. No one would ever take them lightly again. "We did it," Colonel Laura said quietly, her voice filled with awe. "We beat them." Hale nodded, his face reflecting a rare moment of relief. "We did more than that. We showed them who we are." The humans had won, but one thing was clear. They would never forget the lesson learned in the fires of battle. When humans were pushed to the edge, they didn't just survive. They fought back with everything they had. And in the end, it was that unwavering spirit that had ensured their victory. The victory was hard-earned. The once bustling colony now lay in ruins, its buildings shattered and debris scattered across the landscape. But amidst the wreckage, humanity had endured. The alien siege had been broken, their forces scattered across the stars. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. It was a message that would echo far beyond the battlefields. But as the survivors began to rebuild, they were reminded that their fight was far from over. The war had ended, but the scars would take much longer to heal. General Hale stood atop the colony's central tower, looking out over the horizon as the sun began to rise. The sky, once a battleground of ships and explosions, was now quiet. Peaceful for now, but peace, he knew, was a fragile thing. "We've done the impossible," Hale said, his voice low. "But we can't stop here." Colonel Laura joined him on the rooftop, her eyes scanning the horizon. "The alien fleets will regroup. We can't let our guard down. Not now." Hale nodded. He had fought in countless battles, but this one felt different. The alien forces had underestimated humanity, thinking them weak, thinking they would fold under pressure. Instead, they had fought back with a ferocity that stunned the invaders. And now, humanity stood victorious, but only for the moment. "We need to be ready," Hale continued. "This victory is just the beginning. We've made enemies across the galaxy. They will not forgive us for what we've done." Colonel Laura glanced at him, her expression serious. "But we have the power now. We know what they're capable of. We know how to fight." Hale's gaze hardened. "And they know what we're capable of too. But it's not just about the war. It's about something bigger. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. We've changed the balance of power." As the days passed, the humans worked tirelessly to rebuild their colony and tend to the wounded. Despite the toll the war had taken, there was a sense of pride in the air. They had proven themselves, not just to their enemies, but to themselves. The story of the siege would be passed down through generations, a testament to their strength, their resilience, and their refusal to back down. Sarah, the colony's chief engineer, continued to perfect the energy cannon, now a symbol of humanity's newfound power. The weapon had turned the tide of the battle, but there was much more to be done. Humanity's technological advancements had taken a huge leap forward, but they could not rest on their laurels. "We'll need more weapons, more defenses," she said, working alongside her team in the underground tech center. "The aliens won't stop. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." But there was something else that concerned her, the knowledge that the galaxy's other powers were watching. The human victory would not go unnoticed, and Sarah feared that some might see it as a challenge to their own power. As the humans prepared for the long road ahead, they began to expand their influence, reaching out to other colonies and systems. They knew that alliances would be crucial if they were to survive in a galaxy that now viewed them with wariness and respect. Captain Emery and his squadron spent their time patrolling the outer systems, keeping watch for any signs of alien activity. They had become the galaxy's first line of defense, trusted and respected for their bravery in the heat of battle. But even they knew that peace, if it came, would be hard-won. "Keep your eyes open," Emery said to his pilots as they flew through the stars. "We've made enemies, and they'll be back. We have to be ready for anything." Back on the colony, General Hale addressed the survivors. His speech echoed through the war-torn streets, his voice steady and firm. "Today, we stand as victors. We have shown the galaxy that we are not to be underestimated. But the fight is not over. We will rebuild, and we will stand ready for the next battle, because as long as we stand together, no force in the universe can defeat us." The crowd erupted in applause, their spirits lifted by Hale's words. The war had changed them, had shaped them into something stronger than they were before. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors, prepared to face whatever came next. But as the days wore on, the humans began to realize that the true test of their strength would come not from the battles they fought, but from how they rebuilt what was lost. It was a challenge unlike any they had faced before. For the first time, they were not just defending their home, they were creating a new future. As humanity's influence spread across the galaxy, they were no longer seen as weak, as inferior. They were seen as a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy had underestimated them once, but it would never make that mistake again. And in the darkness of space, humanity stood united, ready to face the next challenge that awaited them. The war might have been won, but the galaxy was vast, and there would always be more battles to fight. For humanity, the fight had just begun. As the galaxy slowly recovered from the Great War, humanity's presence loomed large across its many star systems. The once weak species had proven itself to be a force like no other, and now, with their strength and ingenuity, they were carving out their place among the stars. Yet, despite the victory, a new fear took hold among the human leaders, a fear that their enemies would regroup, stronger and more prepared for the next encounter. In the heart of the human colonies, General Hale convened a meeting with the most senior officers, engineers, and strategists. The room was thick with tension as everyone anxiously awaited his words. "We may have won this battle, but we cannot afford to grow complacent," General Hale began. His voice carried the weight of responsibility that rested on his shoulders. "Our enemies, scattered though they may be, will regroup. They will be back." Colonel Laura stood by his side, her arms folded. "We've made great strides in technology, in alliances, but we must be ready to take the fight to them before they take it to us." The room murmured in agreement. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over. The galaxy had seen humanity's potential, and that was a dangerous thing. Other species, perhaps more cunning or more ruthless, could now view humanity as a threat to their own dominance. Sarah, the colony's chief engineer, leaned forward, her eyes sharp with determination. "We've got something no one else has. Our tech is advancing faster than anyone thought possible. If we keep pushing the limits, we'll have the edge. But we need resources, we need people. Our colonies must unite and prepare for what's coming." Humanity was no longer just reacting to threats. They were thinking ahead, anticipating future battles. They were taking control of their destiny. As the meeting ended, General Hale stepped outside to take in the view of the colony. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the horizon. Despite the scars of the war, the world was beginning to heal. But Hale knew this peaceful moment would not last forever. Across the galaxy, strange signals began to emerge, unfamiliar, cryptic messages that no one could decipher. It was clear that someone, or something, was watching. The remnants of the alien forces were regrouping in secret, their motives unclear. Humanity had become a symbol of defiance, and their enemies would not rest until they had crushed this new threat. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the remnants of the alien fleet gathered in the shadows, hidden from the prying eyes of humanity. They were not as defeated as the humans believed. They had retreated, licked their wounds, and now they were planning their revenge. The galaxy was vast, and the war had merely entered a new phase. Captain Emery and his squadron had been dispatched to the outer rim to scout for any signs of alien activity. As their ships flew through the dark reaches of space, they kept their weapons ready. They knew the peace was fragile. "Stay sharp," Emery instructed his crew over the intercom. "We may be at peace now, but I have a feeling that won't last long." In the human colonies, tension was building. The people were divided. Some believed that they could rebuild in peace, while others knew that war was inevitable. It was only a matter of time before their enemies returned, and they would be ready. But beyond the galaxy, in places unknown, the true enemy was stirring. The humans had done more than simply survive the war. They had changed the rules of the game. And the galaxy's other powers would have to decide whether they would accept humanity's rise or try to stop it. Back at the colony's headquarters, General Hale stared out at the stars, a storm of thoughts clouding his mind. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before, and now that mistake could cost them dearly. He didn't know when the next conflict would begin, but he was certain of one thing: humanity would stand ready. "We have only just begun," Hale muttered to himself, watching the stars flicker in the distance. "They think they know us, but they don't. The real war, it's still to come." With that, he turned back to face his officers, determination burning in his eyes. They had fought to survive, but now they were fighting for something far greater: their place among the stars, and the future of the galaxy itself. The future was uncertain, and the path ahead was filled with challenges, but humanity had proven one undeniable truth: they would never again ask for permission. They would take what was theirs. The galaxy would never be the same again.